Where's Renata? Where's Renata? Is she coming?
Consul is speaking.
Sorry?
The director is speaking.
Okay.
This is you.
Yes. Yes. I'll just walk through.
Okay, again, the same thing. Mr. Andrew will explain what are the most recent developments, and then there will be, I believe, then the PowerPoint presentation, and then you'll be able to ask questions. Please ask your questions to Mr. Andrew, and then, if needed, he will ask one of our experts to help him out to clarify things. And please also identify yourself when you ask a question, and please use the microphone because we're taking it.
Okay, well, first apologies for being a little late. The meeting with member states ran over 5 or 10 minutes. For today, I first want to provide you with a brief update of the situation as it's changed from yesterday. And then, with a few slides, summarise the situation in the 4 units where we've been particularly experiencing problems. The presentation we hope to give then will be concerning the background information on the boiling water reactor. We thought that would provide some useful technical background for you, and in that presentation we'll take the opportunity to bring you up to date with our assessment of the current situation in those reactors. We also, I should say, listened carefully yesterday to your questions, and in our presentations and subsequent interactions we'll do our best to cover some of the questions that were left over from yesterday. So concerning the current situation, at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plants, the situation remains very serious, but there has been no significant worsening since yesterday. The current situation at Units 1, 2 and 3, whose cores have suffered damage, appears to be relatively stable. Seawater is being injected into all 3 units using fire extinguishing hoses, but the containment pressures are fluctuating. Military helicopters carried out 4 water drops over Unit 3 since yesterday. Unit 4 in particular remains a major safety concern. No information is available on the level of water in the spent fuel pond. No water temperature indication from the Unit 4 spent fuel pond has been received since March 14th, when the temperature was 84 degrees centigrade. As you will have seen, there is no roof in place. The water levels in the reactor pressure vessels of Units 5 and 6 have been declining. Concerning radiation monitoring, we are now receiving dose rate information for 47 Japanese cities on a regular basis. This is a positive development. In Tokyo, there has been no significant change in radiation levels since yesterday. They remain well below levels which are dangerous to human health. As far as on-site radiation levels at the Fukushima Daiichi and Daini nuclear power plants are concerned, we've received no new information since the last report yesterday. In some locations, at around 30 kilometres from the Fukushima plant, the dose rates rose significantly in the last 24 hours. In one location from 80 to 170 microsieverts per hour, and in another from 26 to 95 microsieverts per hour. But this was not the case for all locations at this distance from the plant. Dose rates to the northwest of the nuclear power plants were observed in the range of 3 to 170 microsieverts per hour, with the higher levels around 30 kilometres from the plant. Dose rates in other directions are in the 1 to 5 microsievert per hour range. As for the agency's activities, the Director General, who is now on his way to Japan, had another conversation with United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and the UN Secretary General pledged all possible support for the agency's efforts. The Director General also met with the Executive Secretary of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, Thibaut Toth, to discuss the possibility of the agency gaining access to data collected by the CTBTO radionuclide monitoring stations. We believe the additional data and information could assist the agency in our assessment of the evolving situation in Japan. I should also mention that a specialist from the World Meteorological Organization joined our team in the Incident and Emergency Centre earlier this week and is providing expert advice on the possible trajectories of winds from the areas of the nuclear power plants. So, if I could have the... would it be your last slide, Jim, the summary slide?
Yeah. Do we want? Elena has probably the better one.
Could you go to the very last slide?
This one?
Yes, this one. One before that. There you go. Is that projecting? Okay. Do you have a pointer?
No.
Okay. This graphic provides, in very much summary form, the situation as we assess it. The important thing to recognise here, this is using validated information provided by NISA, the safety authority in Japan. You'll see on the first row the types of reactor. As you'll know, the reactors 2, 3 and 4 are somewhat more powerful, 784 megawatt, whereas the first unit is 460. The status, that should say, at the time of the earthquake occurred, was that all of the reactors, the 3 reactors, were shut down. As you're probably aware, Unit 4 was in outage. In other words, there was no fuel in the reactor. The summary, we're using words suspected, but we have a strong belief that there's damage to the 3 cores of Units 1, 2 and 3. As I mentioned, there was no fuel rods in 4. In terms of containment integrity, Unit 2, the damage is again suspected. The important thing is that, which you'll be aware of, but it's easy to see it on this summary slide, that the electrical power for cooling is not functioning for any of the units. In terms of the damage to the buildings, severe damage for Units 1, 3 and 4, and rather less damage for Unit 2. Turning to the water level of the reactor pressure vessel, so this is the vessel which contains the fuel, around half of the fuel assemblies, up to half of the fuel assemblies are covered in water, whereas higher than half in the case of Unit 2, and again around half for Unit 3. For the pressure of the reactor pressure vessel, our information is that it's stable in 1, 3 and 4, but still unknown in 2. The containment pressures as shown there. Water injection, you'll be aware that there have been valiant efforts to inject water, seawater, into Units 1, 2 and 3, and of course it's not necessary for Unit 4. And finally, the spent fuel pool information. So with that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague, who's nuclear safety expert Mr. Jim Lyons, who will, as I say, discuss with some satellite imagery, some of the pictures which I'm sure you've seen already, but we have some others which we thought it'd be useful to show. We'll describe the basic functioning of a boiling water reactor to give you the background, and use that opportunity to give you our assessment, our current assessment of how things stand in those units. So over to you, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Good, we've got that up there. So today, what I want to do is try and give you a little bit of background, kind of what we know and what I can help, and then we can answer some questions. You will not be nuclear engineers at the end of this presentation, I promise you. Okay. This is a satellite view of the site. It was taken shortly after the tsunami hit. Yeah, if we could dim the lights, it'd probably help to show this. But it gives you basically an overview of the site, which is really all I want to do here. You have units 1, 2, 3, and 4 here, where the original 4 units were built. 5 and 6 were built later. They were over here. They're protected by jetties and a seawall here. And so it's just a basic overview of the site. I think this one is a comparison. The image on the left was taken in November of 2010, and then the one on the right was taken on the 12th of March of 2011 after the tsunami hit. And what you can see here is on the left, there are these main structures that were there and now are not. And these are various water storage tanks, these two power structures that power the seawater systems. These are the intake, what they call the intake structures. This is where the seawater is sucked in to cool the plant, either during normal or emergency conditions. You have petroleum storage here, hydrogen cylinders here. These hydrogen cylinders are used to cool the turbine. You have a large turbine, and they provide hydrogen to cool it because it's non-corrosive to the windings. And so you see all of these are gone, and you'll see it also in other pictures, I think, that these seawater intake structures were heavily damaged. And that's one of the main reasons that we lost the on-site diesel powers, was the inability to cool them. This is Unit 6. You can see there's a large gantry crane here, power supply for its water intake structure, the protective structure out here. The crane's gone, the power supply's gone. This shows there was a wall that was there to protect against tsunamis that was completely overtaken. This is a picture from yesterday. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but you've probably seen similar pictures anyway.